Hi, welcome to another video from TOGAtech. This is going to be a little bit different today. In this video I'm going to show you how to go from this to this. Hello. I was looking to build a fighter pilot helmet for use with DCS World Flight Simulator, but I couldn't find one that was affordable. And then I came across a guy in Punished Props on YouTube, where he was building foam helmets, Star Wars helmets, and other cosplay type helmets, armour, suits of armour, all made from this stuff, which is like floor matting. It's the old exercise mat style stuff. It's called EVA foam. And I downloaded one of his free templates, which was very nice, which was a Boba Fett helmet, which I'll show you how far I've got with that at the moment, which is that. It's a Mandalorian or Boba Fett helmet. Now I've got this far with it. Now what I found was that it's quite awkward to manipulate when you haven't got anything for it to stand on. Also, I used the template that you download as PDF files, free template to download from punishprops.com. I'll leave a link in the description. This actually turned out to be bigger than my head, so I need something to give me a reference, a scale reference for future helmets or builds I'm making. Again, I looked on his site, and unfortunately it's not free, but he does a head form that you can use, and you'll build that head form to the size of your head, your dimensions of your head. So therefore, when you do any future projects, any future helmets, you can use it as a reference for scaling and size. So that's what this video is all about. We're going to be building a prop head. Let's start the video and I'll talk you through. Right, the first thing you're going to need some tools for this project. So what we've got here, I've got a steel rule. I've got one of these snap blades. I've also got a sharpener to keep that blade very sharp, because it's amazing how quickly the rubber dulls off that blade, and you need a very sharp blade for this work. A silver Sharpie, because I'm using black EVA foam, so it's good to use a contrasting colour to show your designs on there. I've got a scalpel style, or what the Americans called an X-Acto knife, for the finer cuts. We're going to be using contact adhesive, so I've got a tin here of Evo stick, this one, contact adhesive, or I've even got a tube of Bostik all-purpose glue as well. I'm going to give this one a go today and see how well that works. What else are you going to need? I've got some light sanders, sanding pad. I've got a Dremel style sander here, and a heat gun for forming the foam, because you need to put in curves in it, because it comes flat. It's a flat sheet, but obviously a helmet is rounded, so you need to put some curvature into it. Right, so the first thing you want to do is to go on to punishprops.com, go to their download section, and in his video, if you watch his YouTube video, he actually says this this template only costs a couple of bucks. Well, it's obviously gone up since then, because I paid $4.99 for this template. If you can hear any barking in the background, it's my dog who's playing. I apologise for that. But so I've downloaded the PDF document. It comes as a PDF, which is very nice. And the first page here gives you details of what the design is, and it also gives you a handy little scale here for the size of your head. If you print off this template 100% scale, it will fit a 23 inch or 59 centimetre circumference head. Now that is what I printed my Mandalorian stroke Boba Fett helmet, and it actually turned out to be a bit too big for me, so I'm going to have to pad it out. So I've measured my head at 21 inches 53 centimetres. So according to this chart, you need to print this, customise. If you go into your settings on the print settings, go to custom instead of 100% scale, and you can set in a percentage you want. So I set that to 91%, which corresponds to 21 inch circumference head, and I printed out my template. These are your templates. There's 3 pages of them. Now this will only do half the head. This will do, I think, the left side of the head. But in order to do the right side, all you have to do is reverse, turn the template over and draw around the other side. But all will become clear as you follow through this video. So the first stage is 3 pages of these templates, is to use a very sharp knife or scissors, cut very carefully along the lines and cut all these shapes out. So I'm going to work my way through that, and I'll come back to you soon. Okay, so that's all the parts cut out. I've kept them in their page sections, so that's page 1, page 2 and page 3, and that's the nose. Now, as I say, this is only one side of the head printed. So if we look at that, the markings are on the outside. So this is actually the ear section. So that's the ear section of the head. So if we're looking at this will be on the right hand side. So this is the right, because that's the back of the ear, and that's where it joins the face there. So I'm going to put a big R on all of these to show that they're the right hand side. So yeah, if we mark all these up as right hand sides, so pile. I'll just briefly explain as well. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but on each of these patterns, if you look at the patterns, it has these marks here. These help you to locate them against the next piece, and also the annotations of the lettering. So D will attach to D, P to P, etc. on all the other pieces. So where this has a P and this one, they will go together. Doesn't actually go on that one, but where these marks will line up like so. And the only other thing on there is, you can see here, it's got a little mark there, a series of dots, and it says 40° inner bevel. What that is all of the other lines are straight cuts. So when you're cutting your foam, you keep your knife at a 90° angle, and it's a straight cut, just like that. Where it says a 40° angle bevel, what you'll do is you'll just slightly angle your blade at approximately 40 degrees when you do the cut, and it gives you a bevel on the underside. So you have two types. There's an inner bevel, which is that way, so the bottom surface is actually shorter than the top surface, and then an outer bevel, which is that way, so the top surface is shorter than the bottom surface. They're the only two types of cuts. So what I'm going to do now, because this is only the right hand side, so to have a left hand side, all you need to do is flip these over, and so that will be the left, and copy all these marks across. You can see them through the paper. And also the letters where they connect to. So A, D, this is a P, and that's an R, like that. Do that on all of them, and then we'll start patterning them out on the foam. Okay? Wow, well that took the longest time ever, but it's necessary. So now we've got the left hand side and the right hand side for the templates. What I might try later is take the right hand side, put it into Photoshop and flip it, and then print off another copy ready with the left hand side. Might work. I'll give it a go later. It's very important, even though it is time consuming, these registration marks, because without these you won't be able to join the pieces up in the correct position. So though it's time consuming, very necessary. Right, now what we go on to next is we've got our little piles of our patterns. So let's just put those out there a little bit, give us some room to get our foam in. I'll put this gun out the way for now. But yeah, as I say, what we're using is this floor matting EVA foam, and it's just floor mat, exercise mat. Wasn't doing any wasn't having any use in my house. There was definitely no exercise going on there, so I'm going to turn it into something fun. So if we get a full sheet of EVA foam, oh, like this one, this is a full sheet here. I've been using it to spray on, but that's no problem. And if we take our pieces, actually I might use some offcuts, because there's not a lot of space up there, is there? So let's get an offcut of foam. Again, you see I can use it. I've been using it for spraying on. So we get our pieces here. Put them on there, so you can see where we are with this. Okay, now all we've got to do is lay our pieces out on our matting as best as possible, so we don't get a lot of wastage. It do give you some gaps between the pieces, otherwise it will be quite difficult. So here I'm laying out all the left hand side pieces at the moment, just because the pattern happened to be this way round. Like that, so that's that section there. You can do quite a lot with one sheet of foam actually. Oh, haven't put left on that one or that one. That would get confusing when we come to join them together. Like that. We'll leave the nose part aside for now. could use a little bit of like Pritt stick or something to hold these down in place, stop them moving around. But once I've laid them out, what we're going to do now is we're going to secure that knife. I'm going to use a silver Sharpie because it shows up nicely on the black. Just draw around each part. Make sure you mark the forgot what they're called now. Make sure you mark these little dashes here, which helps you locate them on the other parts, and also then transfer all the lettering as well to each part. I'll do the first one slowly, and then I'll do a time lapse through the rest. Okay, so let's start off here with this part. So carefully draw around it. See, I found the silver Sharpie shows up quite nicely on this black. Again, it takes time, but the more effort you put into the accuracy in the beginning, the better the object comes out after. The other thing you can do is, I say, you could glue these patterns down, or you can pin them down. Registration marks, that's what they're called. Right, make sure you mark them. Because they're very, very important. So that's all our registration marks marked for that bit. Then you've got to transfer the letters. So this is a left hand piece. Yeah. It's T, A, J, B, and B. Very important to get right. And make sure you take those registration marks to the inside of the object, because when you cut them, you'll lose them if you don't do this. Just make sure they're on the inside of that object. And that's the first one, and you go round, do that on all of those for the left hand side. Okay, I'll time lapse it through so you don't have to be bored. Okay. Okay, so there we have all the left side patterns marked out on the foam. Very time consuming, but it's well worth it in the end. Okay, so that's the left side. So all we do now is we take our patterns again and flip them over. That's the right side. Lay them all out on the foam and repeat the process. Here we are, we've got all our patterns laid out, which the beauty of this is I've managed to lay it all out on 2/3 of a sheet of this exercise mat. That's all the pieces labelled out. Takes a long time, but it's worth doing. Make sure you've marked all your registration marks, your left hands and your right hands, and that. And on here you can see some dotted lines. What these are the 45-degree bevel cuts. There's, I think, 4 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces with the 45-degree inner bevel cut on. And then using one of these knives here and a sharpener, got a little sharpener here, keep them sharp because this blunts these blades very rapidly. Then just work your way through the patterns Again, I'm cutting to the centre of my marked line because the pen nib is rather thick. Just cut through that, keeping it as accurately as possible. So, and on the curve, you can just pop that piece out, and that's your first piece cut. Keeping the knife at 90 degree gives you a nice smooth cut there. Anything where, see here, I've got a little bit of a rough edge, I'll just smooth that down with my Dremel before I glue it up. And then you just work your way through, cut all the pieces out. I'm going to do that now, and I'll come back to you as soon as that's all done. Okay? Right, as you can see, I've cut out all the parts for the left hand side go in a line. So we can glue that section up, and we can glue this section up with the ear, glue those pieces, glue those pieces. The bits that I'm fairly certain go together, I'm going to start gluing together. Now before you start gluing anything, because as I say it's a sphere, so and these are flat, so what we need to do is we need to stretch out this foam, take it from flat to a more domed shape. Now you can use a heat gun, which I've got a heat gun there, but I don't actually think it's that necessary. You can just roll it out and stretch it out in your hands. It's to relieve the tension when you come to glue it. It takes the tension off. I've got a little thing here I can wrap them round, and I'll pull them that way as well. All depends really on the density of your foam. This seems to stretch and pull quite well. And what I do is once I've glued it, I'll heat it up and pull it more into shape. But for now I'm just going to pull it with my hands round into shape there. It does start to flatten out under its own weight, so keep it upwards. Let both halves dry, or just so that they're no longer tacky or shiny, before you push them together. So just put that aside. There we go, we've done those two parts. Just do a couple of parts and then I'll whiz through them off camera. So we just got to let that cure a bit. This is where your registration marks are very important. See these little registration marks, the little dashes you've made, and the letters. You've got to line them up for each part and keep to them. Push, squeeze, pull the rubber, the EVA foam in whatever directions necessary to keep those lines marked up. So as you can see, it's just dulling off that glue now. I'm going to try and push these two bits together. Let's line it up with one edge first. So we'll start with that bottom corner. Apologise for the shaking, it's Blue Peter style. Bring those two marks together and then bring in the top. So we've got a bit of a curve in this now. And just push the two together firmly. Try and line up your top edge so it stays smooth on the top edge. So the better your cuts, the smoother the joints will be. So try not to rush the glue like I have there. It takes about 10 minutes to go right before you should push them together, but I'm hurrying for video's sake. So you can use super glue, but I'm not a lover of the stuff. And you can also reinforce the joints after with some hot glue, which is a good idea. There you go, that's your first piece joined. Now I'm going to just go through and join the other pieces up the same that I know go together, and then that might give me an indication as to where all these other parts go. But do them in small groups and then that will give you an idea of where bits go. So I'm just going to put those two aside, groups 2 or 3, and then I'm going to glue these two. Same process. I will send a little comment to the guy at I think his name's Bill Duran, I think, at Punished Props, and just a suggestion of be a good idea to drop in an isometric or a 3-dimensional view of where the parts go together for people like me. Right, while I've been waiting for the glue to go off, I've just been rounding a few more of these pieces with the hot air gun, just stretching them out, putting a bit of a curve in. And then I glued the 2 half pieces that I had together here on this H&H mark, and all of a sudden you could see what was happening. The shape was coming together. So that brings round there. This is the side of the head, and that's where the ear goes. Just all of a sudden it seemed to start to take shape. It's amazing. Before I couldn't work it out. It was just a random load of shapes. But now, as soon as I've glued those 2 pieces together and pulled that round, you can see that's the ear forming there, and this is the left side of the head. So I'm going to put some glue on these edges now and then bring them 2 together. And that will give us a nice shape for the ear part to go in. Put a bit of glue in there for the ear socket. There's the ear. So that should go in there like that. I'm going to leave it protrude a little bit so it looks like an actual earlobe sticking out. So rather than sinking it flush, I'm going to bring it about 5mm higher. Just going to put some glue along that top edge there. So that holds it all together. But yeah, so our final piece will just go along the back here, along this back edge here. And and that keeps the roundness in the shape of the neck. Don't forget those registration marks, try and line them up, and this will pull this round. As I say, there's a lot of tension on this. I'm going to give that a few more minutes just for that glue to go off, because it's not going to hold it otherwise. But as I say, I'm going to go off camera now, build the other half and come back to you. Okay, stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. As you see, where I last left you, we'd completed the two sides of the head here, and what I've done is I've reinforced all the joints, and that with hot glue on both sides, so it makes that nice and strong now. I've got no worries about that coming apart. What we're going to do now is we're going to glue up these edges and then bring the two halves together. So again, just with my contact adhesive, let's pop this around, and we've got to glue up both sides. So pop that on there. A little bit at a time so it doesn't go blobby. Spread it out, a little offcut. So let's try and get this in a position we can hold it. So we get the base of the chin together. Let's try and keep those registration marks together as best we can. I think there's a bit of a gap in this by the nose because I just didn't cut the foam as well as I should, but it's going to be covered by the nose, plus any other gaps in it I'm going to fill with decorator's caulking to give us a smooth finish. As you can see, we're bringing those lines together. You can see the big gap between the nose, so I'm going to bring the brow together because that lines up nicely there. You can see that I've got this big gap here, but I'll push that together after. Let's just keep bringing it around. I don't know if you can see that. Come together a bit better. There you go. Look at that. I'm impressed. It's a lot better out there, I must admit, but this is my first attempt, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Let's put a little bit of glue where his nose is going, and then we can try and glue his nose on. There we go. Yeah, this bit here is longer than that side. I mean, not everyone's got a perfect nose, but I'll trim that. So, there we are. That's the head all put together. So the next thing I'm going to do is just use some decorator's caulking. Oh, there we go. Decorator's caulking in here just to fill the gaps. So you can't sand this stuff down, so when you put it in the gaps, smooth it off with your finger. You can use a bit of water on the end of your finger just to help the smoothing process. Let me just show you a bit and then I'll do the rest off camera, come back to you. So just squeeze a bit of this stuff out. Ooh, there's lots of it. Just going to put a little bit on the side there. There we go. Just take a little bit of that and start smooth it in the gaps there. As I say, you can't rub it down, so you want to try and smooth it out with your finger. It will shrink back, so you might have to do 2 layers of this. Right, welcome back. Right, as you can see here, I've gone around all the joints and filled them with just decorator's caulking and tried to smooth it down as best as possible. I mean, it's by no means perfect, but these are like to do with my cut lines. Obviously, as you do more of it, you improve on your cut lines, and you can see these 2 lines here. This should be totally symmetrical. They should line up, but they don't. But I'm still quite pleased with the finished look. If I can just get it in shot there. There he is. And I've stuck his nose on as well. And it's quite good. I mean, the angle of the chin, I love it. I think it's great. I've gone round. The ears protrude out slightly as well, which is all good. And I've reinforced, obviously, all the joints with hot glue. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that result. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it a couple of coats of Plasticoat primer filler, and we'll see how that turns out as well. So I'm going to take this to my workshop now and give it a little spray out and see what happens. Stay tuned. Right, welcome back. Right, as you can see here, I've gone around all the joints and filled them with just decorator's caulking and tried to smooth it down as best as possible. I mean, it's by no means perfect, but these are like to do with my cut lines. Obviously, as you do more of it, you improve on your cut lines, and you can see these 2 lines here. This should be totally symmetrical. They should line up, but they don't. But I'm still quite pleased with the finished look. If I can just get it in shot there. There he is. And I've stuck his nose on as well. And it's quite good. I mean, the angle of the chin, I love it. I think it's great. I've gone round. The ears protrude out slightly as well, which is all good. And I've reinforced, obviously, all the joints with hot glue. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that result. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it a couple of coats of Plasticoat primer filler, and we'll see how that turns out as well. So I'm going to take this to my workshop now and give it a little spray out and see what happens. Stay tuned.